Ross, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thank
We,
you for having me again.
yeah, I had to grab you on the go. I know what day it is. I know it's a busy time, so we got to have this conversation here on the run here, right?
Yes, this is absolutely on the run in the car, heading to a 9 a.m. Brad Lander get out the vote. Can't not really get the vote where we're kind of past get out the vote. He's canvassing over at 72nd Street, so I'm not going to do that. But bopping around the city today, and then probably going to do Zohran's campaign party in the evening. Cover that because either way, I think that will be an interesting place to be. And also, I don't think Cuomo has put out where he's going to be, which is insane but not surprising.
Ross, but you were shouted out last night at the on the Colbert Show, not by
I
name.
was. I was. Yes, I'm very amused by that. Yes, I was the Jewish person he took to the mosque. We did many mosques together. I had very fond memories of mosque visits with Zoran since he knew them and was very tied in because he had worked for Qatar El, the Palestinian pastor who ran for city council in 2017. He had a lot of ties to a lot of these mosques in southern Brooklyn. So we would go. We went to, I mean, I want to say 10, maybe more. I mean, we did Eid prayers. I learned, speaking at Friday at Juma prayer. So it was really good experience, fascinating time. So it was definitely enjoyed my little reference point of Colbert. I was very amused by that.
Ross, did you see this coming? Knowing Zoran, having worked with him, right? He managed your campaign. Did you see this coming? What do you think are the three things he's done to get him to where he is today?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna ask this question. I mean, yes and no. Did I see Zohran Mamdani being on the cusp of winning a Democratic primary in the year 2025 against Andrew Cuomo? No. Did I see him rising far in politics and being successful? Yes. I didn't know what that success would look like. I mean, especially when I met him in 2018. I knew he was 26 years old. He was very talented, very charismatic, smart, great on the stump. I mean, you've been around politics a long time. You know, it's either you got it or you don't. And you see someone right away. It's like, wow, this person has that kind of it factor. And he always had the it factor. So there's always a question. I'm like, okay, what are you going to run for, right? Because a lot of it's luck and timing. So we weren't. I remember talking to him when he's thinking of running for state assembly. It's like, yeah, like you could win that race. And then, do you think going from state assembly to mayor in a 5-year jump? I mean, that's remarkable. When he was going when he's running for mayor and announcing it and he was discussing it, I thought he would do well. I thought he could do well. I thought there was hunger in the city for his message, for the type of candidate he is. But I'll be honest, did I see him polling even with a Cuomo? I mean, I'm lying if I said yes. I think what I imagined cautiously was a strong, good campaign that is fighting it out in like the top three, probably. Like if I was thinking about it back in November, like okay, he can push himself into the top three or the top four, and let the chips fall where they may. But this is to be this strong. I mean, this is remarkable, and I think in March you got hints of it when he was starting to get a lot of attention, crowds showing up to his events, and then he maxed out very early in fundraising. I think that was an indication of something unique, the fact that he's able to max out before all the other candidates.
But Ross, it's been done before, even at a greater scale. Obama went from a part-time state senator
Yep,
in
yep,
Illinois to president in 2 years, right?
yep,
And
yep,
and he passed. He didn't pass. I think he passed three bills in the Senate.
yep,
So this whole inexperience thing begs the question, right? Um,
yep.
so with that said, only one poll shows Zoran winning. Every other poll shows Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, winning. How do you
Yes.
play it? What do you that attribute that to? There is still 95% of the polling says former Governor Cuomo wins. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
And what are your thoughts? Give me a same thing. Three things that you think has made this closer than it should have been in terms of former Governor Cuomo's campaign.
yeah. So I would say it's like I think this race is still very much a toss up. I mean the primary, I think Cuomo is very much in it. I think the trend lines are very bad for him, and they're great for Zoran. But yeah, I mean Cuomo is still going to get a lot of votes, and he might eke it out in RCD. Very, very possible. Why is it so close? I think two factors that are almost equally true. A great campaign by Zoran. You mentioned Obama. I think there are real Obama parallels. Two guys with African roots and foreign names who are discounted by the establishment, who defeat rivals who have far more experience and are deeply dismissive of what they're all about. Like, there's a lot of shades of 2008 here. But also, I think in addition to Zoran being great at campaigning, Cuomo's run a lousy campaign. I mean, really, I've said this before, and I mean it. This is the worst front-running campaign I've ever covered, I have witnessed, I have any memory of. And I'm including Hillary 2016. I'm including Quinn 2013. Any campaign that was supposed to win and didn't, I am including it here. I mean, it's been really cynical, honestly. I think Cuomo could have really done better if he had run a very honest and conventional campaign where he did a lot of typical media. He met the press. He went around the city. He showed he cared about the city. He had an affirmative message beyond the city stinks and I'm going to save it. I think people want someone who loves their city, not someone who's going to denigrate it all the time. And, you look at little things like their campaign signage is really amateur looking. There's really no energy around his campaign at all. They've blown it. I mean, they blew a very big lead. He did no campaigning for, I want to say, 1 to 2 months almost, really very little. And only recently did he start to emerge. And if it weren't for the super PAC blowing, $25 million, I don't even know where he'd be right now. I mean, look at the unforced errors, screwing up CFB paperwork, getting fined by the CFB, using AI for a housing platform. It's just lazy, cynical campaigning. And you wonder why, and you come back to, did he feel so entitled that he just walk in? Look, I think Cuomo really underestimated Zoran. I think he looked down on the field. He made a calculation that wasn't wrong, that when Eric Adams crumbled, he had an opening. Stringer, Lander, Myrie, Adrian Adams were not really able to stand up to him. I think he just did not think about Zoran at all. And look, this race is close because of one very talented candidate and one candidate who just took the race for granted. I think each factor is of almost equal weight here.
Ross, I'm gonna try to move this along because I know you're pressed for time, and I want to wrap this up. Uh, Ross, talk to me. How do you see November? Is it
Mm-hmm.
Zoran, win, lose, or draw? If it's close, is it Zoran, former Governor Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Lee won November?
I increasingly think so. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm struggling to see scenarios where either Cuomo or Zoran step aside. I just don't know why they would, right? You consider the race right now. It's going to be close. I think we all agree that no one's blowing anyone out here. It's after RCV. It's going to have to be within 10 points, right? Let's say Cuomo wins. If you're Zohran Mamdani and you just lost a very close race to Andrew Cuomo, and you've got the Working Families Party line, and you can raise a lot of money, and the options in the general election are Sliwa, Cuomo, Adams, why would you not run? You almost have to run. Conversely, if you're Andrew Cuomo, your entire life has been about politics. This is your last shot. There's nothing after this. He's mayor, or his obituary is resigned in disgrace as governor. Like, that's it. So if you're him and Mamdani is the nominee, you just lost the race. And Eric Adams is really the only thing standing between Zohran in City Hall, why would you not run? And especially with the entire business community, the entire finance and real estate world united around stopping Zohran. So if I were Cuomo, of course you run. Now, I don't know if Cuomo would win in the general, but he would probably get super PAC money, on the scale of like what Michael Bloomberg spent when he ran for re-election in 2009. Michael Bloomberg spent $100 million. If you told me that Cuomo's super PAC would unleash that in the general election against Zohran, I would not be surprised, put it that way. So I see it. I don't know. I think the scenario that would most shock me sitting here right now is one of these two men is not in the general election. That would actually surprise me. If Zohran said, nope, I lost. Sorry, guys. I support the nominee. Or Cuomo's like, nope, Zohran won fair and square. I support the nominee. I think my sense is one scenario that could play out is Zohran wins the primary. Cuomo blames it on the heat and low turnout. I think turnout will be fine. And says now we're going to run a re-election in the general with more voters. That's my soft prediction right now.
Ross, let's go down ballot. Does
Yes.
the council member Justin Brannan ride the
Yes.
Mamdani, WFP, Bernie Sanders wave and beat current Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting question. I mean every poll has showed Mark Levine like significantly ahead. I am of two minds. I could see if Zohran does well enough, it pulls Brannan over the top. I also think, given what the polling has shown us, Cuomo really is going to have to flop, I think, for the wave to pull Justin up. Just because I don't know if every Zohran Mamdani voter is also a Justin Brannan voter. I do think, especially in Manhattan, I'd be curious your sense too. My sense is Mark Levine is going to do very well in Manhattan. I think Brooklyn is going to be a battle. I think Queens is a battle. My assumption is the Bronx, Levine will do well. He's got kind of the Espaillat operation. He speaks Spanish. He's got Orthodox Jews. I mean, it's an interesting race. I honestly find it a little curious that one candidate is framed as the progressive vanguard and the other isn't, because on the issues, Justin Brannan and Mark Levine are almost identical, except for Israel. But Justin Brannan is certainly to the right of Zohran on Israel and Palestine. So I confess this race befuddles me slightly. It almost felt like the Working Families Party needed to have like a quote-unquote progressive-seeming candidate in this race, and they kind of settled on Brannan, maybe because Levine didn't try hard enough or Levine was too pro-Israel. But, I mean, they both belong to the Progressive Caucus in the City Council. I've covered them both. I covered Levine for many years. Like, I never didn't not think of him as, like, a progressive in New York City. So it's a little odd to me. But, look, I think it's going to depend on the top of the ticket. If there is some massive Zohran wave and people are consistently putting Justin Brannan number one with Zohran, Mark Levine's in trouble. My sense is it's got to be a real one-to-one, and it's got to be a pretty big wave. Otherwise, Levine probably ekes it out, just given every available poll. I mean, maybe they're all wrong, but even the internal that Justin released, he was, I think, down 10. So I'm guessing Levine. If it's not, I'm wrong, but just all the evidence suggests Mark Levine will be the controller.
All right, Ross, up or down, nay or yay, because we got to move on. So let's just go up or
Yeah.
down.
Okay.
Public advocate, Jamani or Raj Kumar? Who wins?
Jamani
Perfect.
definitely. Jamani.
Perfect. Bronx Borough President's race.
I
Vanessa,
assume Gibson. Solomon. I assume Gibson. My assumption is Gibson.
got it. Manhattan Borough President, Hoylman or Powers?
I assume Hoylman because of the West Side. The West Side Democrat always wins these Manhattan Borough President's races. So
Got it.
something will have to go sideways.
Got it. Brooklyn, Reynoso Edwards.
Assume Reynoso. I imagine that won't be close.
Aviles, does she pull it out? Councilmember Aviles.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Councilmember Hanif.
Yes, I think she will win.
Councilmember Pierina Sanchez in the Bronx.
I've heard she's in trouble. I will guess incumbent because it's hard to bet against them. I will say Sanchez. I've heard that one's competitive.
All right. Thank you, Ross. Anything you want to add that I forgot to mention quickly?
No, well, this is great. I mean, I have like a couple of minutes that I can talk for just a bit longer. It's fine. I think we last spoke. It was like not that long ago in terms of like time, but you think of like how drastically. I remember we were discussing Eric Adams at the time. Is Eric Adams vulnerable? I felt he was, and now we're at a point where Eric Adams is not even in this primary. Um, you know, it's been a really just fascinating race. It's unlike any mayoral I've ever witnessed. It's extremely polarized. In some ways, it has not been topsy turvy at all. In that there's been one front runner that has slowly and now rapidly lost his lead. Unlike 2021, where you had multiple lead changes, or 2013, multiple lead changes, right? At the same time, you've never seen two candidates so diametrically, I think, opposed and different in a primary. Even, Christine Quinn and Bill de Blasio were rivals, but two long-serving elected officials from not so dissimilar wings of the Democratic Party who agreed on a lot of things. Garcia, Yang, Maya Wiley, similarly differences, but also we're not like radically different people. I mean, Cuomo, Zohran, you cannot pick two more contrasting candidates. So I'm continually fascinated by that. I am very interested to see what the turnout looks like. It does feel like a collision of two different New Yorks. It's like young youth New York against older New York. It's like the old Democratic coalition against this kind of emerging Democratic coalition, which I think would be a mistake to dismiss as like a white gentrifier thing. I think that's like the easy shorthand. But you look at Zohran support, you look at the polling, it feels more generational than that, where if you are under 40 and you're Latino, you're supporting Zohran. Even I'm sure some under 40 black voters are supporting Zohran. Asian, South Asian. So it feels like a generational realignment almost. I think the big question is it enough? And a few days, if we did this podcast like 4 days ago, I would have said, I think Cuomo will have it because Zohran might just be too ahead of his time in terms of his coalition. Now I'm not so sure. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? This could be the realignment
They
election.
say a day's an eternity in politics, and this is so true.
It is. I mean,
If
yeah.
9/11 doesn't happen, that unfortunate, tragic accident, who knows? Ferrer probably would have been mayor, right?
Yeah, or Ferrer or Green, right? One
Yes,
of them
correct.
is
But
mayor. I mean, yes,
but
absolutely.
that's
Change the course of history.
yeah. But either way, Ross, thank you so much for your time, and
Yeah,
I
thank
wish
you.
you all the best. And let's keep talking. All right,
Keep
it'll be an
talking. Sounds
interesting
good.
day. All right, talk soon,
Yes, it
buddy.
will.
All right,
Sounds
bye
good.
bye.